We are People First Scotland, the disabled people's organisation for people with learning disabilities in Scotland. We work to change the negative ways that people with learning disabilities see themselves, to change the negative and prejudiced way that many in society see and treat people with learning disabilities, and to change the laws and policy that affect people with learning disabilities. We recognise hate. Do you?
Disableism means discriminatory, oppressive or abusive behaviour arising from the belief that disabled people are inferior to others. It does not give a clear picture of the horrific crimes that we will tell you about later in this film. It might describe the everyday misery of hate incidents which we have been talking about in other words for decades.
Imagine a young woman too frightened to go to the local shop when she needs milk, as the teenagers who hang around her will call her Mong and push her around when she goes in or out of the shop. They have previously asked her to buy cigarettes or alcohol for them, and because she said no, they shout at her every time she passes. This young woman will go without milk for her tea or the things she needs to prepare her evening meal, rather than face the teenagers. She will wait up, not sleeping at all, until her support worker is due to come the following day to go shopping, as she is not confident to travel alone to a different shop. Her support worker just says she should not pay attention to the children. This is misery every day.
What's the problem? It's just a laugh. It's just a laugh. It's just a laugh. It's just a laugh.
It is not a laugh. No one should be putting up with this. But it happens all the time. People are scared to go out.
Police Scotland want you to report it. You can ask support to report it. Please do report it. A hate incident is any incident that is not a criminal offence, but something which is perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by hate or prejudice. It leaves people feeling scared, vulnerable and alone.
People with learning difficulties have other words to describe it.
It is cruel. We are people too.
Doesn't stop.
It's horrible to the person.
It's cruel and it's not fair.
It's not fair. Why did they do it? Some of the worst hate crime which have been most widely reported in the press had these kind of incidents. Head up to them. There is a pattern.
A couple of people use a local bus to go to the drop-in centre which they use every Friday. We've done this together for some years. The drop-in has moved and it's now in a different area. Because the area is new to them, they have asked the bus driver to let them know when it gets to their stop. It takes the man some time to ask the bus driver to do this. The man's speech is difficulty when the driver finds it hard to know what he is saying. Conversation where the bus driver is held up with the other passengers. A man utters under his breath, "You're not all there. You're stopping us working people up. You get a free pass and you're bloody mental." The driver and the other people in the queue hear this, and nobody challenges the man. The couple lower their heads and hurry on to the bus. They're unsure of the journey and they're upset.
We think There are lots of reasons why people still don't report these things.
People's support workers of family are not paying attention to us. People who not call it a hate incident.
No action was taken when people reported it before. Sometimes people see no point in report something when nothing was done the last time, no matter how long ago that was.
People put up with it because it has always happened.
People are told to ignore it. These neighbours, support workers and others might tell people just ignore it. They could support the person to report it.
Of course, sometimes people want to use their support time to do other things and not to think about these bad experiences.
We have worked in co-production with Inclusion Scotland to produce their Easy Read Toolkit, which informs disabled people, their organisations and providers of services to support and encourage people to challenge and report these crimes and incidents. No staff, no support worker, no social worker should be telling us to put up with it. Third-party reporting can help, and so can things like the Safe Places scheme. The toolkit tells you more about these things.
This clip shows what it can be like.
Who gave the Dooney flowers?
Who would give the Dooney flowers? It's not like she'll have a boyfriend, will she?
Hey Mongo, who's the flowers for? Someone died?
Oh, has your mod died? Did she die when she seen your ugly face?
Hey Mitch, how come I never get flowers? If you wanted to go out with me, you'd give me flowers.
Who says I won't go you anyway, you old slag?
You do. You're just too pussy to ask.
You're too pussy to do anything. You can't even get flowers off a Dooney for me.
Is that right? Watch this. Hey Rita, give your flowers. So who's the pussy now?
Who are they for then, Mitch?
Well, it could be for you. Or it could be for you.
I didn't want your smelly flowers.
Well, if you don't want them, someone will. Hey retard, do you want your flowers back?
Hey Mongo, why are you talking to us? Can you no talk?
You're awfully quiet, Jamie. You're too good for us.
Shut up. Hey Mongo, who gave you the flowers? Your boyfriend. Is he a retard too?
We have had a law to recognise hate crime in Scotland since 2010.
Disability hate crimes are described as criminal acts which are perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on a person's disability or perceived disability.
The Equality and Human Rights Commission said that harassment is a commonplace experience for disabled people, but a culture of disbelief and systemic institutional failures are preventing it from being tackled effectively.
We have been saying treat incidents and crimes against us seriously, and we've been saying this in easier words for a very long time. While people first brought a citizens' grand jury together to ask these questions.
Why are people with difficulties much more often victims of crimes in everyday life? And why are we still much too often subject to inhuman, degrading and abuse treatment in care settings?
The Anti-Bullying Alliance carried out a survey and gathered these statistics.
1 in 10 adults have used abusive language towards a disabled person. 44% of adults use the words spaz, spastic, retard or mong in casual conversation.
There are often a lot of other words or action added that are even worse, of course.
And it starts young, the same survey found almost 70% of teachers surveyed had heard children using the words spaz, spastic, retard or mong at school. Over half of these teachers heard children using it in casual conversation. However, the same number heard them using the words in insult to their peers.
Of course, like the rest of society, not all teachers challenge this. They do not recognise it as the beginning of hate.
To use these words reflects society's attitude towards us, seeing us as having no worth, no value, being of no use.
We are seen as unlovable, undateable, unemployable, and as objects to make fun of, torment and abuse.
These hurtful words used to describe our difference receive very strong reactions when used as insults against others.
Some other offensive words continue to be so common in casual conversation that they don't even get noticed some of the time.
When society expresses shock and horror because people with learning disabilities get beaten up or robbed, abused or murdered, the link is clear to us with those words, the stigma, the hate.
Society is shocked, but it is no surprise to us that the accepted casual abuse and intimidation can spill over to become much more serious crimes of hate.
In March 2005, Keith Philpott, a man with a learning disability, was falsely accused of being a paedophile, tortured, disemboweled and stabbed to death in his own home.
Shu Wei He was 25 when she was beaten with copper piping, wood embedded with nails, and a broom handle so hard it snapped in half. She was beaten, burned and abused for weeks before being thrown outside in freezing temperatures, where she died.
The series of case review following the murder of Steve Hawkins in 2006 found more than 40 warnings. Stephen was tortured and forced to hang from railings. A woman stamped on his hands so that he falls 100 feet to his death.
Fiona and Francesca Pilkington died in a double suicide, having been repeatedly subjected to hate crime. Their deaths were one of the large number featured in the report, Hidden in Plain Sight, produced by the Human Rights Commission.
In 2007, Christine Lazinski, a woman with a learning disability, was urinated upon and taunted and sprayed with shaving foam as she lay dying in the street. Her brother stated that she had been picked upon most of her life.
That same year, Fred Martin, a young man who also had learning disabilities, was attacked by a gang of people who he thought was his friends. They bet £5 to see who could knock him out first. They kicked, punched and headbutted him to death. One of the attackers said, "It's not going down for a Muppet."
The year before Brent Martin's murder, the judge sentencing 3 people for the systematic torture and false imprisonment of Kevin Davis described what they had done as truly appalling and utterly inhumane. Although they were at first charged with murder, Kevin's epilepsy was given as a possible contributing factor in his death, and the charge was altered. He died locked in the shed where they had tortured him.
In 2006, Raymond awful sins. A 40-year-old man with learning difficulties was severely beaten. He had bleach poured over him and he was thrown in the River Mersey. Later his body was found by police. He thought the attackers was his friend.
2 years after Raymond's murder, 2 people were charged with the murder of Laura Mill. Her body was mutilated as she was killed by people she knew and trusted. As she was killed, a young woman who Laura thought was her friend and said goodbye. You are our weakest link, and laughed.
In 2007, 2 years before his murder, Michael Gilbert said he had been abducted by one of those who was later convicted of his murder. But Michael said he didn't want to make a complaint against him. The reasons he gave was because it would make things a lot worse in the long run.
In 2010, the Quest reported the death of David Astor. He and his family were tormented for 13 years. David went to speak to the children who were attacking his family. David challenged the children, but he died of a heart attack.
Craig Kinsella, a 34-year-old man with learning difficulties, was kept imprisoned in a garage where he slept on an old carpet with a tattered curtain for a blanket. He scoured the wheelie bin of those who held him captive for food and used a bucket as a toilet. He was too scared to flee and believed the couple and their adult son, who had subjected Craig to a string of horrific attacks with fists, steel-toe cap boots, a spade, pickaxe handle and a crowbar, would hunt him down.
3 people were jailed for life for the murder of Gemma Hayter, who was violently beaten, taken to a railway embankment, forced to drink urine and stripped before being left to die.
The 2015 murder of 24-year-old Lee Irving, a young man described as friendly, vulnerable and as having learning difficulties, involved a group of people, although only 2 were charged with murder. When reporting his murder, the Guardian newspaper pointed to research which illustrates the increased likelihood of people with learning difficulties experiencing sustained attacks which involve humiliation, degradation and torture, and again established the connection. When a group is routinely dehumanized in this way, it is only a matter of time before their lives are seen to mean less.
These terrible examples of hate are shocking.
The abuse uncovered at care homes and private hospitals through whistleblowing and secret filming has been shocking.
A continuing example of people with learning disability being treated less than human are shocking.
We want you to act and support change.
We work with Police Scotland, the Scottish Government, the Crown Office, with other voluntary organisations, with disabled people's organisations, with local authority commissioners, adult protection committees, colleges, schools, transport companies and with support providers to ask them to recognise hate and to act to challenge it.
The statistics for hate crime in Scotland are released each year. So far, there have been rises in the number of disability hate crimes being reported. We know that this might not mean that more of these crimes are happening. It possibly means that some people are finding themselves better able to report things that so many have tolerated for years? We hope so.
Although the number of hate crimes and incidents reported by other equality groups remains far higher than those reported by disabled people, there has been some progress in this hate being recognised and reported. The report Getting Away with Murder said, disability hate crimes, like other forms of hate crime, are motivated by contempt, hatred or hostility towards a particular group of people because of who they are. In the case of disabled people, hate crime is an extreme articulation of the prejudice and discrimination disabled people face on a day-to-day basis.
We want you to make that link.
We want you to listen.
We want you to ask.
We want you to act.
We want you to challenge.
We want you to recognise hate.